despite the claims or the hints at subjective morality, it must hold to an objective sense of morality to exist.
You have to be angry at Glinda for the way that she's acting around Elphaba at the beginning. You're supposed to be angry at them. Well, how could you be angry with them if what they're doing isn't objectively wrong?
Citizens of Oz, there is an enemy who must be found and captured. Believe nothing she says. She has stolen our grimoire. Her green skin is but an outward manifestorium of her twisted nature. This distortion, this repulsion, this wicked witch.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Watch Well podcast. Again, I am Parker, your host. This is my co-host, Nick. Let's get a drum roll on that. Nick. Wait for it.
Anticipation.
How was your week, Nick?
It has been a very good week, and for once, you're asking that question, and it's only been a week since the last time you asked it.
It's only been a week. That's right.
So yeah,
right.
so it's actually been a week now, rather than a month or so, or a day even sometimes. But yeah, things are going really well. Excited to be doing this episode again.
Yeah, guys. Some housekeeping stuff before we get started. We're doing live streams every week on Thursdays at 8:30, and so don't miss out on that. We're covering interesting topics from the internet. So not only are we watching movies well, we are watching YouTube well, the news well. So we kind of get a little political, sort of like Watch Well After Dark when the movie theater turns off kind of idea. So if you're interested in more of our content, please jump in the live stream and engage with us. We really want to build a bunch of movie buffs that want to talk about the world, talk about the Bible, engage. We want to answer questions. We want to talk back with you guys in the chat. So if you're interested in our content, check out our live streams on at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday evenings every week, unless otherwise noted. I also don't want to forget Dangerous Friends, the Dangerous Friends Conference through Clear Truth Media. You can get tickets at dangerousfriends25.com, I believe, .com, and you can go to that. It's in Monclova, Ohio. You've got a lot of awesome speakers. Go check out the website for the speakers. You got Jamie Bambrick, Stephen Whitlow. I think John Roseman's going to be there. I think Seth Gruber's going to be there. Lots of people. Michael Foster's coming. So come check out Clear Truth Media Dangerous Friends Conference, March 13th and 14th. So want to get through all of that. We also have our merch store open. So if you guys want some Watch Well sweatshirts and merch, we have an awesome new design on there. It's called the Brainwash Tee, and it's got a really cool graphic on the back. It's got like a TV with the hypnotizing little, normal stereotypical graphic with an eyeball in it, and it looks super kind of punkish. It's really neat. So, and then on the front, I think it's got like a skull. It says "Watch Well or Die." Super cool idea. I want to thank Lindsay Whitlow for the design. It was super awesome. My pastor's wife actually sent that to me. She was like, "Hey, Park, I got an idea for a t-shirt." And she sent that to me. So that was super generous of her. So thank you, Lindsay, for that. And I think that's it. Live streams, Dangerous Friends. Oh, Dangerous Friends. If you use the code WATCHWELL25, one word, 2 capitalized W's, WATCHWELL25 at checkout, you'll get $25 off your ticket. You can come visit me. You might find yourself on a Watch Well episode. There is going to be tons of Christian podcasters there. There's going to be guys like Greg Moore from Dead Men Walking podcast. You got Keith Foskey from Your Calvinist coming. You've got Corey Wing from Civically Minded. Brandon Woods from the Eschatology Matters crew's coming. So there's going to be a lot of fun. TC Cook is coming, bringing his whole crew, I think. So come check out Dangerous Friends and all the podcasters, all the speakers. It's going to be a great time to come and meet more Dangerous Friends. So that sums it up for our announcements. And let's start talking about our movie. The movie. That's why everybody's here, right, Nick?
We got the movie, yeah.
The movie.
Yep.
So, Wicked.
Yeah, Wicked.
All
right.
Let's talk about
All right, end the episode there. Just Wicked. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Everyone deserves the chance to fly.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, so let's just start about just the beginnings here. Let's get into the plot a little bit, and then we'll just kind of see where it goes. I don't really have a structure for today's episode, so
all right,
go ahead and open it. Well, keep in mind, real quick, just for you to know, Nick, this was the very first time I've ever seen it. And when I say ever seen it, I mean like I didn't even know the story going into the movie.
So you've never seen the musical?
I've never seen the musical.
Okay.
Never seen any. I didn't even read about it. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew was that it happened before The Wizard of Oz. That's it.
Yeah. So I never watched the musical either. So I never saw the live show on stage. I knew, like, I had heard people talk about how much they loved it for years, though, and they've talked about. So
Kayla saw it in Chicago.
Okay.
Right. I think she said she saw it in Chicago right before Idina Menzel retired from the tour, and then it was some other singer, Broadway actress that replaced her for the Elphaba part.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool to know.
Yeah.
But other than it happened prior to The Wizard of Oz, and it's the relationship between the Wicked Witch of the West and Glenda, the Good Witch of the East. Is that right?
North?
Good Witch of the North. I didn't. Other than that, I knew nothing going into this. So
they never. I don't think they say that though. At least not in the first part.
Maybe
of
I don't. Maybe they don't. Yeah. So let's do it. Let's just open it up and go scene by scene, because this is a giant movie. I mean, giant movie. We probably should actually do just like a shorter.
It's almost 3 hours long.
I did with Flight Risk. Yeah. Well, and because of the Broadway backing, historically, it's a huge deal. So let's do it justice. Let's go opening scene all the way through the movie. We'll talk about different points, and we'll see kind of what we come up with, and then at the very end, we'll talk about our main overarching points.
Yeah. So you open up, you see there's kind of like this ominous like sound, right? I mean, it kind of an ominous picture on the screen too, and then the camera kind of flies over this massive landscape, and it becomes more happy, I guess. And then as you're going over this landscape, you see Dorothy and the Tin Man, and it's very, very small, but you see them and you fly past them basically, and then we jump right into the Wicked Witch is dead, right? And it's the song No One Mourns the Wicked. You have Glinda coming in and making the announcement that it's true, the Wicked Witch is dead. And then one of the Munchkins asks a question about wickedness, and then Glinda says, "That's the question. Are we born wicked, or do we have wickedness thrust upon us?" And then they're singing the song "No One Mourns the Wicked." So that's probably a good spot to start, right? Because that question, that question's kind of the whole premise of the movie, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I like that. So, repeat that line again, just so that we can have a really concrete starting point. So, you said, "Are we born wicked, or do we have wickedness thrusted upon us?"
Yeah, and that's the question. That's the way that before she starts to tell the story, of how she knew Elphaba, and the events that led to her being the Wicked Witch. That's the question that she asks, and she doesn't really ask that question. She's rephrasing a question from one of the Munchkins, right? Like,
Right.
But yeah, so are we born wicked, or do we have wickedness thrust upon us?
So, I imagine, if I could guess, that you are going to start with the thread of original sin, if I had my guess.
Well,
somewhere in there.
I mean, I think that's kind of where the question's getting at, sure. But if you're wondering where I'm going, I didn't really have anywhere I'm going with it other than to note that that's an important part of the movie. And I think it's pretty obvious, though, that does get at original sin because they don't answer the question yet. I think as you watch the movie, they're probably, and this, I would assume this is true of the musical, the Broadway show as well, but it seems like they're trying to tell you that wickedness is something that can just, a label that can be put upon you even when it's not true.
Hey guys, real quick, I wanted to update you on something. So we've got our new merch site up and running. Finally, it's been a labor of love. We've got designs back there for hats, hoodies, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. We've got a blanket back there so that you can grab the person you most enjoy watching films with. You can cuddle up under the Watch Well blanket. You can watch well together with some popcorn. Head on over to vindicatedproductions.com. Check out the new Watch Well site. Buy some merch. Support the podcast so that we can keep bringing you guys really, really good content to ultimately combat the passive consumption of entertainment and bring a more complete worldview to everybody that enjoys movies. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Like, would you agree with that as you watch the movie, and especially with the way the movie plays out? It seems like they're answering that question with a couple options. Either nothing is truly wicked, and it's always just a label. So there is no truly evil person. Everyone has a background that could thrust them into evil or not, right? And it's just a label.
Right.
Or there might be, a less harsh or less kind of maybe not going quite that far way that they could be approaching it. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of them, but I would say I'm going to play it a little close to my chest because we haven't seen part 2, so I have no idea what the second act is going to hold.
Yeah, and neither do I.
So I can't. So this is interesting for us, like I would say it, like that question really depends on part 2. Because if it's thrust, so all we know is that wicked, like the fact, so she's asking the question, is wickedness something you're born with, or is it something that is thrusted upon you? And what we know from part 1 is that Elphaba had wickedness thrusted upon her.
Right. Exactly.
So meaning that she is the only, I'm speaking generally, she's the only innocent one in the film.
Sure.
Would you agree? Am I forgetting some other random scene or something? But generally speaking,
maybe up to this point, Elphaba's sister.
Maybe Elphaba's sister.
But I know, like, I've heard certain things about what comes in part 2.
Yes.
Now, but I don't. I try not to, like, especially if it's something that I haven't seen before, so I'm not familiar with the musical. I don't really want to run out and get the spoilers before I see part 2. So I've heard things, so that could change in part 2. But as of the end of part 1, I think you would have to say Elphaba's sister Nessa Rose is kind of innocent right now, right? I mean, wouldn't you? Because she,
yeah, I would say so. Yeah, this is the character that's in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
So I'm going to struggle with a little bit of the names. I don't have the names memorized. So
yeah.
I would say Ariana Grande's character Glenda is super selfish and self-centered.
Oh, sure.
She's not innocent.
Yeah.
And her male counterpart, love interest, is also that way.
Admittedly
Admittedly that way.
Yeah.
Can you remind me the Munchkin character?
Bach.
Yeah.
But
Is that the redhead guy?
yeah, but
The redheaded Munchkin character?
Glinda frequently says his name
He's got a
as
yeah.
Wick.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So he's got a interest in Glenda, and she tries to set him up. And I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but she tries to set him up with Elphaba's younger sister, correct?
Yeah.
Or older sister?
Younger sister. Yeah.
Younger sister. Okay. So
and it's kind of and Glinda does that in a very manipulative way.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Kind of manipulating Bach's feelings for her to get him to do something else rather than just turn him down. Right? She's trying to turn him down and say no without actually doing that.
Being clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that wickedness is thrusted upon Elphaba.
Yeah.
Everyone else seems to be born with it.
Yeah.
Is my point. That's kind of what I'm targeting in on.
Yeah. So
which
then
leads to the greater point later, but if we keep working through it, and the animals would be innocent.
Yeah, victims. Yeah. Sure.
So they would be innocent as well. That professor or teacher or professor. Yeah, he'd be a professor, right?
I'm blanking on his name right now, but yeah, he was a professor.
He's a goat, right?
Yeah, he's a goat.
Yeah.
What is his name? I should have remembered that, but I can't remember it at the moment.
Yeah, the one time I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
Here, let me look it up. You can say what you were going to say.
But yeah, the animals are definitely victims because, in one sense, there's just so much. There's so many ways that political narratives.
Dr. Dillerman?
Dr. Dillerman, yeah, that's right. There's political narratives that kind of weave throughout, and it is all related to wickedness. But back to that original question, I suspect. Now I don't know this for sure because this is also based on a book, or the Broadway play is based on a book. So, like, I don't know this for sure, but I suspect that they want to tell us that wickedness is just a label. Now, I could be wrong about that they're trying to kind of portray like evil as just a label that society places on something. But then, and in a way, like, denying any type of objective morality. Like, there's no, but throughout the movie, in order to make that claim, they have to portray people as objectively immoral, right? Like, so the wizard is objectively immoral, right? But it takes that in order to put the label on somebody else. So in a sense, it's almost like it's trying to not have this objective morality, while at the same time it has to have objective morality to tell its story. So and maybe I'm wrong about my perception of what they're trying to do. So I mean, I could be way off base on that, but that was just kind of what I sensed in it.
Yeah.
And in asking that question, are we born wicked or is it thrust upon us? It could be the case that they're trying to say something. That's essentially what it's asking. Yeah, they're trying. Yeah. Is there even really wickedness at all? Right, like.
Yeah, well, I think I really think it precisely it's not even asking. I think it's asking the bigger question that is hidden within that verbiage of the question is, where does wickedness come from?
Yeah.
Because if you're born with it, it has to come from somewhere outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
If it's thrusted upon you, then who gets to decide? Like those would be that would be the interesting thing to play out, and wickedness, knowing that wickedness is just the measure of lack of good, then there has to be objective good, right?
Yeah.
So then where does that come from? So these are kind of, you're right. The beginning of the movie, this quote evil thing dies, and then they immediately ask, well, where does evil come from? Where does and who decides? You have these questions right at the rip off of the film, right?
Right. Yeah, and when Glinda starts to tell the story, she says something like, "And we all have a story." Right, and she's
as like you mean like as like a justifying why?
Yeah, so like even the villains of history have a background, right? They didn't just appear out of nowhere one day, like appear into existence. Even the all of the any villain you could think of throughout history who did evil things, like they have a background, they have a story, they have a life, they have things, they grew up, so and that contributes, maybe not solely to blame, but it contributes to your actions as an adult, right? As you grow, your background contributes to who you become, I guess. Does that make sense?
Right. No, that makes total sense. I think that's where the world, and it would be interesting to talk to somebody who may know deeper history on this, but I don't know where this comes from, but I think that it's an emotional appeal. It can be used as an emotional crutch to justify the evil being done. Because it's like, okay, so this person comes from somewhere and we should feel really emotional and bad about all of this evil that they've done later in life.
Because
so
somehow
we should let them off.
Yeah, somehow we're all complicit in their
ultimately
evil because
it's not
of the
their
way,
fault.
Right.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's not their fault because their past is the reason why, and that's out of their control. So the evil that they're doing now isn't their, like, they're not culpable for that because this whole emotional appeal thing.
Yeah. Which from a Christian perspective, we would look at that and say, like, I know both of us believe total depravity, right? We believe that in sinfulness in that way, and that the doctrine of total depravity. But even with total depravity, that doesn't mean everyone is in action as evil as they can be, right? Like, so even though my neighbor, let's say, and this is just hypothetical, so if my neighbor happens to watch this, I'm not actually talking about you. Let's say my neighbor's not a believer. I believe that he's totally depraved, right? I believe that that fits him, and he's totally lost in his sin. But that doesn't mean all day, every day, that he's acting out in complete and utter depravity all of the time, right? We're completely evil, but we're not always doing as evil as we could, right? There's the potential for great evil, but it is kind of withheld a little bit. And so are the things that we experience in life, even though the potential for great evil is already in us, the things that we experience in life might increase our propensity for evil acts, right? Like, so,
yes.
So in the case of, let's, even though the movie's not going to this spot, let's say Elphaba was truly wicked, right? Even if she was still truly wicked, she would still have a background, and her background would contribute to how evil she was in the things that she was doing, right? Like, and if she didn't have those experiences, she would still be totally depraved, but maybe not as actively evil in actions that she's carrying out, right?
Right.
So we would look at it that way, but I don't know that the movie is really looking at it that way. It might be more of a this is explaining away your perception of what's evil, because everyone has a background, and so therefore everyone is essentially complicit in this person's evil because of that background. Because they even talk about what is it in the song, which this is jumping ahead a little bit too, but in the song The Wizard and I, it mentions munchkins as so small-minded, right?
Mhm.
Like all of the munchkins are so small-minded, referring to how they treat Elphaba, right? Because her dad is the mayor of Munchkin Town, and she's green, so she's bullied, and all of that. So, in an essence, like again, Elphaba's not, at least the way the movie portrays her, is not truly wicked. It is thrust upon her, but it is the experience that she has being bullied by the munchkins that Glinda is kind of saying, and this is why, and maybe this is why we shouldn't hold it against her. Right? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of
Yeah,
what's
for sure.
happening with that?
Yeah. I think I would have to agree. Yeah, I don't really have any I don't know if I have much more to say to add to that. I will ask though, do you think, I'll ask you a question back. Do you think they were a little heavy on the politics or the partisan race, I guess green versus everybody else, and kind of hinting at, the whole race politics in America or anything like that? Or do you think that they
Yeah.
stayed pretty true to your knowledge of, do you think that we're hypersensitive to that and saying, well, that could be bias, or maybe it's just the film?
I think we are probably a little hypersensitive to it, but not for bad reason. I think we have good reason to be hypersensitive to it because of previous movies that go so like far into that and really do kind of shove that into your face. But there's definitely that undertone. But I would say that even though Elphaba is outcast because she's green, I don't know that you can take green in this movie to be like the equivalent of race. It could, and I think it's possible, but she's literally the only one. So maybe in this sense, it's more like, a person who has a scar or something that everyone
Yeah.
looks at and sees, because she's literally the only one. But then also, but kind of the Marxist CRT type worldviews there, because you definitely do have kind of, they do lay out oppressor class versus oppressed, right?
Right.
So like in a sense, Elphaba fits into this oppressed class, but then the animals are definitely representative of an oppressed class. So like,
Right.
and it's within Oz. So you do see that, right? I mean, so I don't know that the movie takes it as far as some others would have or have in the past, or like really shoves it down your throat the way some others do. But I also, knowing Hollywood, I don't think it was an accident that they portrayed it in that way. Like you have the animal class, you have like Glinda's a part of the high class, like you have the wizard who has power and authority, and now he's determining everything for everybody. So you have the power, the ruling class in that sense, right? So I think it's there. I just don't think it. I didn't find it overwhelming.
I didn't either, and I kind of wonder too. I didn't find anything. You know, I didn't find anything in any research or anything. But I also wonder if I want to say it's not, like, I think so. Like when it comes to movies and it comes to ideologies and shoving a Marxist or a CRT ideology down our throat through a movie, or over messaging that in a movie when it doesn't need to be there, I don't think this qualifies. And when I was watching the movie, I wondered if when the original story was written, it was a different time than it was now. And it seemed, just from somebody who's didn't know anything about the movie, was walking into this completely blank for the most part. It seemed like, yeah, I could guess or wager a bet that they stayed relatively close or close enough to the original spirit of the film and story, even back to the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was written in a different time and was not, I would say, purposeful in injecting into one of those ideologies. And then Hollywood, for once, stayed true to the book because of how iconic the story is.
Yeah.
So I was watching it and I was like, oh, it'd be really easy to just zone in on that and be hypersensitive or, outrage or whatever. But I really don't think that that's what was happening there.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that's why I say it's kind of like there.
And I'm one that would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And that's why I'm saying there's like hints of it, and you could go that way if you want to. And we've, and again, for a good reason, there is some hypersensitivity to stuff like that. But I don't think they were like really, really trying to push it in that way. They were just telling the story the way it was written.
But I agree. I do agree, 100% agree, that the overarching themes we have in this film right now are, where does evil come from? Are we born with it? Or does someone get to decide that someone's evil? Mm-hmm. And then by what authority does that person have to decide whether someone is evil or not? And are they legitimate?
Right. Yeah.
Those are kind of what we've got going on. And if you kind of extrapolate that into like a secular worldview and pull everything out of it, you have total depravity, you've got original sin, you've got these threads, and then you have, is God real? Or is he a phony? Is it just a book written by men? Mm-hmm. Is it just this thing that was just made up that a bunch of people believed? Was Jesus this crazy guy that said a bunch of crazy stuff? And then, so like, we have all of that going on right here in the very first, 5 minutes of the movie?
Yeah. And the first song.
Because you already know from seeing the original Wizard of Oz, from seeing the original movie, you already know that the wizard is fake.
Right.
Going into this movie.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you have that. So.
Yeah, and even with
that's a lot. They drop a lot of it right in front of you.
Yeah,
right at the beginning,
which is typically
right
what
there.
Good movies do. I mean, good movies do that, and I personally would classify this as a good movie. Like, I think it was really well done.
I would even go as so far to say great.
Yeah, yeah. So
I would say it's a great movie.
This might derail us a little bit, but I spent money to see this 3 times in the theater. Not necessarily all of my own. It wasn't like all my idea every time. I was good with once, and I went with my wife 2 more times. And then
when you have a wife and daughter that are really into it,
they love musicals.
It's kind of like kryptonite, right?
And then we sing, playing all the songs in the car, and then then we watched it for a movie night because a friend came over when it's on digital or whatever. So we bought it and watched it on movie night. So we've spent like $300 on going to see Wicked, so you're welcome to the production studio. But
well, speaking of production, let's talk about that for a second. Holy cow, dude! That scene, I was amazed. That scene when they're in the library and the choreography and the set design of that big barrel.
Yeah, that's really cool.
You know what I'm talking about?
That was awesome,
dude. That was it blew my mind. I was like. Okay, I actually sat down with Kayla and I was like, it's 2 different experiences of this story. And again, I haven't seen it in Broadway. I've seen clips on YouTube after I watched the film because, my wife, Kayla, was interested and kind of reminiscing of the past when she went and saw it. And it was, I'm sure it was incredible live in Broadway, but that's totally different when you can design a bookshelf in a barrel
like
that spins, and you have choreography, dancing, and people are going everywhere, and the colors. It was incredible.
You know what it almost reminds me of? It almost. Do you know where I'm going? Are you gonna?
I was gonna guess, but I don't. I don't really know
guess.
where you. My first thought is the live action Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, no, it wasn't that.
Was that a good guess at least?
I mean, not really. Not for not compared to where I'm going with it, but it reminded me in a way of the rotating hallway scene in Inception.
Oh, in Inception, yeah.
Yeah, because you have that fight scene in the hallways rotating around, and they're still fighting. Yeah. Like you have to hit your spots.
I thought I said Beauty and the Beast because I thought we moved on to colors when you said.
Oh,
that.
sorry, no,
I wasn't thinking of the barrel.
Yeah, I was still on the barrel. Yeah.
No, but that barrel scene with the choreography, I was floored, and people may laugh at me in the comments or whatever, but that takes so much to do.
Well, even the more subtle little dance things in that scene, like the sliding on the books and then the opening them with the feet, like was even really well done. Yeah, so really
they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
with the way it looks on screen, and then we also have to talk. We're kind of getting off topic here, but that's okay. I want to get all of it in here. We'll come back to the original questions that we kind of notice at the front. I also want to talk about some of the other stuff too, but the callbacks to the originals. Did you notice those?
So I probably didn't catch all of them, but I did. I definitely saw a few.
Well, I had to do some research, and the original. So if I'm off, I'm not a, I'm not a Wizard of Oz nerd. I'm not a Wicked guru. So if somebody needs to correct me, go ahead. That's fine. But the research that I did, which I didn't realize before, the original story, the ruby red slippers were silver. And if you notice in the scene where in the dorm room, when they're in the bedroom, their dorm, they were going through, I forget the song. I'm going to blank on the songs, but they were talking about, Popular. I think it was Popular.
Okay. Yeah.
And she was going through all of the clothes and trying to make Elphaba popular and going through her wardrobe and stuff. And she holds up silver slippers, and then you also see the ruby reds.
Okay.
So, like the callbacks, of each individual thing, and I'm sure that there's more, but there was that was the kind of the main one that I was researching, and I was like, I didn't even know that the original slippers were silver.
I didn't know that either. I heard that afterwards, but yeah, I'm not a big enough Wizard of Oz fan to know that. I think I've only seen the original Wizard of Oz film once.
Oh, I think I've seen it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I was captivated by the movie. It was really good.
Yeah. And one thing that I notice, and I feel like this always comes out in the movie, like you can see this, and I can't like quantify it, like I can't give you a criteria or anything that leads me to this, but it looked like everyone was having fun. Yeah. Like legitimately, it looked like they were having the time of their life making the movie. And there's some other musicals that kind of have that feel too, and even other Disney,
like The Greatest Showman.
The Greatest Show, yeah, it feels that way. Like,
yeah,
even if there's flaws, and they're just having a fantastic time making it, and it's like that in and of itself, I feel like draws you into the movie a little bit more, to the story and everything. Yeah, there's stupid, and I call them stupid. I would never say that they're stupid in front of my daughter, but like the zombies movies on, they're just like Disney Channel original movies. When I've seen those, I feel the same way about those. Like they're just having a blast. And
I haven't seen those
with the first couple of those, but it makes it more enjoyable when it appears that And maybe they're just really good actors. Maybe they were miserable and they're just really good at acting. I don't know, but it just looked like they were having a good time while they were doing it.
And I would say that there's a lot of, I mean, there's big shoes to fill, you know, and the legacy of this movie, or I'm sorry, this story is giant, like we said at the intro. So I think there's a level to filling those shoes, and there's a reverence and an honor to do that. I think that's kind of what you're honing in on, where it's like, okay, well, we have to do a really good job. It's an honor to do this film, and it kind of sets the culture, and you can definitely see it on camera. I agree that you can't quantify it. It's just a feeling or a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much good I can say about Ariana Grande as a person. I don't think that's a shock to anybody, but I really enjoy her voice. She is talented, you know. She's incredible singer.
Yeah.
Her music sucks, but she's really good.
Yeah.
You know, a good singer. So I'm a fan of her voice, not necessarily a fan of her. And so I will say, in addition to that, through my research, she was asked to recreate either a few songs or one song in particular to make it more her style of music. And she, to her credit, denied it. She turned him down. She said, I'm not going to do that. We're going to stick as close to the original as possible. And I think, I mean, respect, right?
Yeah.
To stay true to the original story, not make it about you, make it about the story. So you got to give credit where it's due.
Yeah. Yeah. And she really she does a fantastic job as the character, as Glinda. Like she really does become that character, and her voice is incredible. I had no idea she could, do that opera style of singing that she does throughout the movie. I had no idea she could do that.
Have you seen? You probably haven't, because you're not a fan, and I'm not really either. But every now and then it'll pop up on my feed. Where she does the musical impressions.
No.
Have you seen those?
Mm-mm.
Well, she can actually, so like there's I think it's an SNL skit where she gets on there and there's this like, they set it up kind of like a spaceship, but it's like live. It's like a radio station that does music, and they treat it like certain female vocalists, their music goes down, or like that's what they say. It's like, oh, Celine Dion went down, like we need a Celine Dion song. And Ariana Grande goes on there and she can sing just like them. Like she can sing like Celine Dion, she can sing like Whitney Houston. Like she just does these vocal impressions, and it's incredible, dude. It's so good.
Yeah.
So you got to check that out. It's so crazy. And she sounds very similar to them. And it's kind of comedic too, because she does some of the little nuances that each of those vocalists do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of fun. But I think she does Shakira, and she does a lot of different ones, and it's really funny. But back to the movie here before we get too off
if we're not already too far
point.
gone. Yeah.
if we haven't drove this into you're off the cliff already, I would say, what if we could pull out? So we started off with the original questions. What is evil? Is it thrusted upon us? All the things that we said. We have this depiction of a deity, and in Oz, and we know that it's a false deity. Nobody knows but us, the viewer, yet. And what do we do with that? You have this. So you have all these questions about, I mean, could you call it ontology? The existence of Oz, and good and evil. And so you have all these kind of related themes, right? So let's set that to the side. I know we have already. We kind of went off on a rabbit trail. But now let's talk about some of the truths that the film must hold to, despite the worldview that it is bringing up over here. Let's talk about the truths that so like, can you think of anything that the film needs to just exist, like the structure of the film? Can we maybe pull some of that out? And I'm thinking off the top of my head too, so I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay.
I'm also on the spot. Is there anything in this film that we can kind of tease out that structurally it must hold despite maybe the worldview that it's kind of pointing to in terms of subjective morality? And I think you kind of already had a little bit of it where
Yeah.
despite the claims or the hints at subjective morality, it must hold to an objective sense of morality
Absolutely. Yeah.
to exist.
And
So let's kind of go there a little bit.
okay, so you have to be angry at Glinda for the way that she's acting around Elphaba at the beginning, like during the loathing scene, and you have, the audience has to be angry at all of their fellow students, right? You know, Glinda, you
Yep.
are so great. You know, like how are you? How are you doing this in the song "Loathing" and all of that stuff? You're supposed to be angry at them. Well, how could you be angry with them if what they're doing isn't objectively wrong?
Right.
If their
And
if
then I
their
would also,
rejection of her isn't objectively wrong, then there's no reason for you to be angry with them.
yeah, 100%. And I would say also we talked about the oppressed class of people in the animals. Well, there's a sense of injustice there. What
Mm-hmm.
if evil is subjective, then what, like, so despite each individual claim of maybe a subjective morality, you know, evil is thrusted upon you,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not necessarily your fault, or someone else gets to decide that evil is what it is. Within that, you have injustice with the animals. You have the way Elphaba's being bullied, which is objectively wrong to treat an image bearer of God that way.
Mm-hmm.
Within the framework of the film, we're talking here. I think you can kind of follow the metaphors, but yeah, I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. Yeah, and even, which I'll probably bring this up a little bit again later, but you have to believe lying is bad,
Yep.
right? You have to believe manipulating somebody to get what you want is bad.
Yeah, or else the wizard could be good.
Right. Yeah. Because
I mean, it's good for him. It's good for him. So, he gets to. So then, good is reduced to what I need to do to accumulate as much power as I can
mm-hmm.
and control as I can.
Yeah. And there's so much of that throughout. I mean, and again, I don't know where it goes from here. Like I can guess.
Right. We're just talking within the
but
framework of the first movie. Yeah.
In a sense, you have Glinda manipulating people to get exactly what she wants, right? She wants Fiero, but she wants to remain popular, so she can't really overtly be mean to Bach and say, I have no interest in you, get away from me, which is what she really wants to do, it seems like to me. So instead, she just kind of manipulates into him, uses his feelings for her to manipulate him into doing something else, right?
Yeah.
But it's not about being nice to Nessa, the girl in the wheelchair who she's claiming to feel sympathy for. It's really just about getting him away from her, right? Like it's not really out of the goodness of her heart, even though she says that, right? She claims credit for things like that, that it was done out of the goodness of her heart, like giving the hat to Elphaba. Like I couldn't hate anyone enough to give this hat to them, but then she gives it to Elphaba.
And well, what is hate?
Right, exactly.
What is hate? So even just the simple claim, I couldn't hate anyone enough, would also fit that. So this is kind of making me think. Did you, in line of objective truth, did you feel anything? I'm gonna kind of jump to the end here, or sort of the end. Yeah, it's kind of the end where they're on the balcony. And there's the, I think Elphaba is on the broom and she's flying around or whatever, and it's right before the monkeys or come to get whatever, and Elphaba's kind of hovering on the broom and Glenda's standing there on the balcony, and there's some exchange where in the song it's like you could have all that you ever wanted, just go back to the wizard.
Oh yeah, so that's
So
I know what you're talking about. That's before the broom has even come up yet.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So it's before the broom.
Yeah.
I think that every Christian can feel that in their soul. Like just the idea of believe the lie and all of your dreams can come true.
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably even, pull a parallel out of when Jesus was tempted, where just do this thing, bow down to me and I'll give you everything.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's even that there too within that. So even that kind of narrative is stolen from our worldview.
Yeah. And then at that point, Glinda's even trying to make that argument from a place of trying to do what's best for Elphaba. And at least,
which is hate.
Yeah, like she thinks that by making that argument that she might make everything better. And I guess you don't really, maybe she's doing that because she doesn't want to look bad. But if they're truly friends, then I guess you could assume that she's doing that from a place of thinking it's best. But it's so misguided. You're exactly right. You're asking somebody to believe a lie so that the problem can go away. It's like you can still have it all. You can have everything you want, and this problem will go away if you just go back and believe the lie. Let it.
So the question is there anything in the film, and I'm trying to remember, is there anything in the film that would give us evidence that Elphaba is making the right decision? And what I mean by that is not following the lie for a just reason. Do you think that she's truly not following along because she wants the truth, or because she's just trying to protect herself from being manipulated? Or is there anything in there that you could think of?
I kind of perceived it as the fact that it's all a lie was enough for her not to go along with it. She didn't.
Okay.
I think it's kind of all of those things. She didn't want to be a tool used to manipulate, and she didn't want to be like that instrument that would further oppress the animals when she thought she was there to do good for the animals, right? She didn't want to be that instrument, and she was not going to allow herself to be made into that. And I think she was willing, having already been like deemed unacceptable her whole entire life, right? Like, and she couldn't be part of just the crowd, with the exception of that little brief period before they leave for Oz, but before they leave for the Emerald City. But I think she made a conscious decision that I would rather be the outcast than be the evil one oppressing the animals. Right? I think she made that decision. I mean,
right.
I don't know that there's anything.
I guess I was trying to make sure that there wasn't a bad reason for why she was rejecting the lie.
If there was,
and I can't think of one.
Yeah, I don't think there was. I can't think of anything that was like a. I don't think it was selfish. I don't think it was, because if it was selfish, if it was purely selfish reasons, then she probably would have said, "I don't want to be green anymore," right?
Yeah, and I think the answer to this question will be the answer to this question will be addressed in part 2, because we don't know what she does with it, right? If it's selfish and she takes her power and able to read the book, then that would be evil and she would be wicked. And it, you know, and that goes back to the original question, is it thrusted upon her, or like is her situation the reason she's evil, which makes her not culpable for what she does?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where it goes? And I'm kind of, I guess I'm trying to extrapolate that with something I haven't seen. I don't know the end of it, so we'll have to wait for part 2, I guess, for that. But I was just trying to make sure that we didn't overlook anything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other ideas that you want to go into at this point?
So I'll just go with like the big takeaway, and it's all related to lying. So I think it's a really good example of exactly what I'm gonna overgeneralize probably, but like exactly what almost everyone in our society does, and that is to misrepresent and misinterpret things for the purpose of controlling the narrative rather than worrying about truth. So
Yep.
for like, I mean, you see this on social media, you see it in politics. It's never about the actual truth of an argument. It's about how can I frame this in a way to keep my position as authority and thus keep things the way that I want them to be. It's never like political discussions and political debate and, you know, over policy and even just in general. I think as social media has become the marketplace of ideas, one of the things that's happened is it's not about talking to one another to find truth. It's about forming a narrative that allows me to continue to come out on top, even if the truth would have me like humbled or humiliated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like, you see that, it's obvious in The Wizard, right?
Yep.
His whole persona is this massive lie. And he's trying to get other people to come into that lie, regardless of the truth. And when he sees it all crashing down, rather than break down and confess, he tries to hold on to his authority, his power, what he sees crumbling before him. He forms a narrative that'll scapegoat another person so that he can keep the lie going for as long as possible. Right? And I think we do that in conversations with people. I think every political debate we see is like that.
And about optics. Yeah.
Yeah, it's PR, it's optics, and I think social media has turned all of us into PR people rather than just people, right? Like we're all trying to be PR professionals and control the narrative. And along with that comes a few different Bible verses that we could look at. I just clicked off of it, but the most obvious one would be in Exodus: don't bear false witness. Right? Do not bear false witness would be the most obvious. But then you have ones just like Proverbs 6. There are 6 things the Lord hates. 7 are detestable. 7 are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict. Like these are all things that God hates. And yet the way we interact with one another now is to bear false witness as long as we come out on top. Again, it's not about truth, and it's not about getting to a point of truth. It's about forming a narrative so that I can keep my pride intact, basically.
Yeah.
Is what it seems like.
Yeah. That's really good. I mean, it's good to take a step back and just, it's really take a step back and, I don't know. You were saying all that. It's like, just be thankful, and because what you're not saying is all of these things are bad. Like they're neutral things that can be used for evil or used for good, right? So like social media presence, trying to reach people with the gospel, those would be good ways to use this. But if it becomes a false thing, an idol, or infighting, or a anything, then it would fall under all of those things. And then pride is sticky, and it gets in there, and then you start trying to control the narrative.
Yeah.
And it becomes more about I just want to win the argument, instead of.
And there's been some high profile, and I think you know more about this than I do, but just from hearing and reading there's been high profile arguments between Christians, like that are that way, where it's really just about trying to control a narrative. And then and I might take some flack for this one, but even like there are legitimate criticisms to make of Donald Trump, but the majority of them that are the most popular are fake, right? Like there are plenty of legitimate criticisms that you can make about the man, and about some of potentially, if you disagree with on political grounds and policy grounds, and there's legitimate criticisms to be had, but the ones that are chosen to be the kind of the ones that people scream the loudest are ones that are made up and proven false. But that doesn't matter, because it's about the narrative, right? It's about forming a narrative. Right. And you could even, you can see that from certain people on the right too, about arguments that are made on the left. And it's just like, I just think that that's a really big sin in our society right now, is that misrepresentation, bearing false witness. And it seems to be that it's done out of a desire for selfish gain and pride. It just seems that way. And the movie depicts that really well.
I think if we're talking, 60,000 foot, generally speaking, I would have to agree. You do get into the weeds, and then I would say, and I don't think that you would disagree with this, but I would say that one side tells the truth more than the other, and in terms of what the policies are, and even within that, people are going to disagree. But I agree that a simple movie like this, and that's why, if you're watching this long, that's why we do this exercise. That's why we love movies, because every movie is built upon a message. And we just like doing this because you can pull all of this out of just a simple movie, and it helps you view the world differently. And we're called to view, if you have the Holy Spirit, if you've been regenerated, exchanged heart of stone for heart of flesh, you're going to see the world differently. And that's kind of where I went with it. Woe to the person that calls good evil and evil good, right? And at the end of the movie, that's what we see happening. Is you see Elphaba is this innocent character, broadly speaking, and she is called wicked. She is, in order to keep their power, the evil ones, Oz, the teacher, indoctrinate a whole population of the whole population of Oz, and you have these two characters that are sitting there on the balcony, and one is pleading with her, just go back to the wizard, believe the lie, because they know it's true. No one else knows it's true. Yep. They have this, believe this lie, and you can have everything you ever wanted. And the Christian is called to be bold and to stand with the faith and reject the world. Yep. And that's what we see our main character do, is I don't care what people say about me. I don't care the burden. I don't care the names they call me. They can, I want to stand with truth, and that's what we're called to do as believers. So we're going to see the world differently. The Bible says that the natural man can't discern. They can't discern spiritual things. So you can see the parallel pretty clearly there, where when you're dead in your sins, you're going to look at good and evil differently than when you have the Holy Spirit and when you've been saved.
And then along with that, even the way that the movie portrays what you just talked about, and the lying and the false narratives and things like that, the thing that tells you that this is a well done movie, or one of the things, is that as you're watching this play out, you grow to hate the wizard because you know what he's doing is evil. But here's the thing: how many of the people who watch this movie and do feel that towards the wizard? Like, man, this is wrong. Elphaba is not she is not wicked. She's just being labeled this, and it's all false. And they're calling her wicked when she's not, and all of that. How many of those people have zero problem with it when it's done in the world?
Yeah,
because they're blind.
That's right.
It's blind, but the movie can bring it up. Like, it can, because it's a story. It can like reveal what's hidden down there. Like the truth that you're suppressing. But when it's going on out in the world, if it's something you agree with and want to be true, you don't care anymore, and you become you essentially. What we do is when we're watching the movie, we want nothing to do with that false narrative, and we hate it, and we hate that it exists in the film. We hate the people who say it. Yet when we turn to the world, we're okay with it as long as it benefits us.
Yep, and we self-deceive.
Yep.
So ultimately, you go through the movie, and I think the initial urge is to view the wizard as a false god. And God's not real, God's false, and that's how we started this off. But I would encourage everyone to view him more of what he truly is, and that's Satan, the father of lies. He sows deceit, and it's not an actual depiction of God that actually gets to make false morality claims. It's a world that's been indoctrinated by Satan, who wants to take dominion and wants to devour, like a lion and all these different things. So it's totally evil. It's totally evil. So I guess that's, to sum it up in so many words, that's what I would say is. It just seems to me that the urge is to say, oh, well, that's God. That's a depiction of God, and it's a false God. Nothing's moral. It's all subjective. There's no actual moral arbitrator or arbiter. It's instead, no, that's the devil, who everyone is falling victim to his schemes in the land of Oz. And then you've got the two main characters, Elphaba and Glenda. Glenda has to make a choice, and is letting popularity and letting the world dictate her decision on ultimate truth, pulling her away from it. And then you have our hero, Elphaba, who decides to stand boldly with truth and reject the world.
Yeah.
So that's what I got.
Yep. That's good.
Any final thoughts?
No, not really. Again, I really enjoyed it. Really well done movie. It's nominated for a ton of awards, which I think it deserves to be nominated. Yeah, I'll probably see it 100 more times in my life.
Probably.
So we'll see how that goes.
Probably.
But, yeah.
Yep. Well, and then we'll obviously do part 2 when it comes out. Big weekend. Captain America's coming out, so look for that one on the YouTube channel. And if you guys are listening on audio, that's the other announcement that I forgot. We have additional content on YouTube, so go check that out. I'm doing mini reviews on YouTube. Don't forget live streams 8:30 Thursdays on Twitter and or X and YouTube, and then Dangerous Friends. Don't forget that. Dangerous Friends 25 or dangerousfriends25.com. Use code WatchWell25 to get your $25 off your ticket. And don't forget that every movie ever made that is good and bad borrows from the Christian worldview. We just observe what Hollywood steals. Don't forget to watch well.